Introducing YouTube memberships, a fun way to support the channel while getting some exclusive perks. Click the join button to become a member now and get benefits like badges next to your name on videos, behind-the-scenes photos, advantages during the live trivia game, discounts on merchandise, private one-on-one video chats, the ability to request future video topics, and exclusive 8 to 10 minute videos on the history of the NFL. And now, on with our feature presentation. I want to give you a hypothetical scenario. You're competing in a basketball game for your rec league team. You're a really good player, and you're the starting point guard. This is a pretty big game for your team. You're sitting right around 500, and you probably need to go 500 to make the playoffs, so a win here would be absolutely critical. Before the game, the coach pulls you aside and says, "Hey, we love what you're doing. You're a great player, you're helping this team win games, and we love having you on the team. But I just want to let you know, you're going to start this game. And then, in the second quarter, no matter how well you're playing, we're going to bench you for the rest of the game." Keep in mind, it's not because of an injury that you're going to get pulled midway through the game. It's not because of doctor's orders. It's not because of a punishment, like you acted out at your coach or another player, or anything along those lines. You're just getting pulled from the game midway through, whether you've got 2 points to your name or 20 points, even though this is a must-win game. Something like this seems absolutely insane, especially at the NFL level for a must-win game, where you just decide before the game that no matter how it's going, you're going to switch players midway through and hope for the best. And again, it would be one thing if it was a game that didn't matter, like a Week 18 game where you've got a playoff spot clinched, you want to play the starters for a quarter just to keep them loose, and then you put in the backups the rest of the way. That's different. This is not like that. Not at all. Well, in 2003, that's exactly what the man that you've been watching this whole time, Herm Edwards, decided to do with the New York Jets in a game against the Philadelphia Eagles. So much for you play to win the game, because in 2003, Edwards started Vinny Testaverde under center, and then, midway through the contest, benched him for Pennington, in a move that was entirely calculated, in a move that was entirely planned, and in a move that, let's be honest, was entirely nonsensical. Because this is the story behind what might just be, considering the circumstances, the strangest quarterback controversy in the over 60-year history of the New York Jets franchise. Before I talk about the actual incident in question, and this bizarre strategy that didn't seem to make a ton of sense on paper, we need some context to understand the importance of this scheme, as well as why the Jets even had this controversy in the first place. It's October 26, 2003. It's Week 8 of the NFL season, and as we're approaching the midway point of the year, we've got an interconference battle on our hands over at Lincoln Financial Field between the New York Jets and the Philadelphia Eagles. To say that this was a big game for the Jets, as in the main subject of our story, would be putting it lightly. The Jets need to win this one if they want to keep their season alive, and have any hopes of making it back to the playoffs for the third straight season. They enter this game with a 2-4 record, and not only do they sit 2.5 back of the division title in the AFC East, but they sit 2.5 back of a wildcard spot as well. If they lose this game to the Eagles, a team that is absolutely beatable, seeing as they enter this game with the third worst offense in football, then their season might be dead in the water. And part of the reason why the Jets are somewhat in disarray is because for the entire season so far, they've been without this man right here under center, Pennington. The Jets drafted Pennington in the first round of the 2000 NFL Draft in hopes that he would be the franchise quarterback. And the good news was that when he was healthy, he was playing well. In 2002, the Jets went 8-4 with him under center, and won the division title thanks to the great play of Pennington, who completed a league-best 69% of his passes, and a league-best passer rating of 104.2. However, the bad news was that entering the 2003 season, the Jets were going to be without him for quite some time, as he fractured his left wrist during a preseason game against the New York Giants. The injury was expected to keep him out for up to 12 weeks, although there was some hope that he'd be back by the end of October, and would be able to return from the middle of the season. Which raises the question, if Pennington was out, who was the next man up? And who was the backup quarterback? Well, it was this man right here, Vinny Testaverde. Testaverde had been in the league since 1987 and had been with the Jets since 1998, when he led the team to the AFC Championship in a game that you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. However, by this point, he was 40 years old. He had been on the decline, and while he was still a very good backup, it was very clear that this was Pennington's team. Still, for the first 6 games of the 2003 season, while Pennington was out and nursing that wrist injury, Testaverde was there under center, trying to right the ship. And the results were, shall we say, pretty mixed. Over the first 4 games of the season, he and the Jets' offense looked terrible. The Jets went 0-4. He threw just 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, and the offense had scored a grand total of 45 points, or just over 11 points per game. Obviously, that's not going to get it done. But over the last 2 games, not only did the Jets win them both, but Testaverde played very well, throwing 4 touchdowns and no interceptions while posting a passer rating of 106.4. After a rocky start to the season, it seemed like Testaverde was manning a pretty tight ship, and while it was very clear that this was Chad Pennington's team, Testaverde was doing a fine job as of late, stepping into that role. Now, it was time for the 7th game against the Eagles. Which raises the question, who was going to be starting this game? On one hand, Pennington was healthy. He was the franchise quarterback, and it seemed pretty clear that once he was healthy, he would take over the starting job again. On the other hand, Testaverde was the hot hand, and had been playing very well as of late. So when it came to this man right here, head coach Herm Edwards, who was going to be starting this one and playing this absolute must-win game to keep their playoff hopes alive, I think either decision would have been perfectly acceptable. If you start Pennington, since it's his team, he's probably the better quarterback, and you're going to have to start him eventually, that works. If you start Testaverde, since he's got the hot hand, that also works. But Edwards decided to do something absolutely insane and absolutely confusing that, let's call it for what it is, just didn't seem to make any sense whatsoever. Because for this game against the Eagles, he was going to play both. He was going to play Testaverde, and he was going to play Pennington. Seriously. How the plan was going to work was like this. Testaverde would start the game, and he would get the ball rolling. Then, after a few drives, no matter how Testaverde was playing, whether he had 200 yards or 2 yards, he was going to get yanked for Pennington. Seems bizarre, right? Well, as Edwards said about this decision, this is not going to be musical chairs. No, no, no. There is not going to be a quarterback controversy. No. Once Pennington comes in, unless something happens, he's going to play. But wait a sec, Herm. Wait just a second. It's not going to be musical chairs? You're playing 2 quarterbacks. You're switching quarterbacks in the middle of a game. That's pretty much musical chairs, especially since you said unless something happens, which could be anything, whether it's injury or poor performance or anything else. Plus, I know you're saying there's not a quarterback controversy, but it seems like you're creating one out of thin air. If you had just said Chad Pennington's starting the game, then boom, there's no controversy. If you had just said Vinny Testaverde's starting the game, then boom, there's no controversy. If you said Testaverde is our starter until Pennington gets healthy, and then Pennington's our quarterback, again, no controversy. But by saying that Vinny's starting the game, but we're going to put Chad in, but we don't know when we're going to put him in, but we want to make sure both quarterbacks are involved and play a role in the offense, yeah, you're creating a pretty big controversy through your own doing. It's like if I asked someone, how was your day at work? And you say, it was good. I definitely didn't stab someone on my lunch break. I wasn't going to assume, had you not said anything, that you stabbed someone on your lunch break. But now that you said that entirely by your own doing, yeah, that's in the back of my mind a bit. I've got a few questions. Herm continued, saying, I just think it's the right thing to do for the football team, and for Vinny, and for Chad. If you are going to change a quarterback, to me, you want to make sure both parties are involved in the game because of the uncertainty about Chad. But wait a sec again. What do you mean uncertainty? Uncertainty about his health? Uncertainty about how well he's going to play? What does that mean? You just created a controversy. Do you see how confusing this is? Plus, how does this help the team at all? It's already going to be tough enough to win this game, especially since the Jets had never beaten the Eagles before in franchise history. Each quarterback calls the offense differently. Each quarterback has different plays that he likes to run. Each quarterback has a different touch on the football, and each quarterback calls a different game and has a different cadence. Your players are going to have to adjust to the style of Testaverde and Pennington, and presumably, you're going to be splitting reps with the ones in practice. How does this help you? And if you're going to do this, why would you announce it to the world so now the Eagles know to prepare for both quarterbacks, instead of having them prepare for just one, and then you catch them by surprise during the game? I just don't get it. I honestly just don't get it. You're going to pull a guy on a predetermined basis in a must-win game when you don't have to. You're going to screw up your own guys in the process, and you're going to create a quarterback controversy when one didn't exist beforehand. It's like the Indianapolis Colts right now. We know that Anthony Richardson is the starter, and we know that Gardner Minshew is the backup. But if they announced when Richardson was healthy that Minshew was going to start the game, and Richardson was going to come in later in the contest no matter what Minshew was doing, all of a sudden, I've got some questions. And you do too. It's understandable. And I think you're going to be shocked to find out that this grand plan of theirs did not work out at all. Not in the slightest bit. Turns out, rotating your quarterback in the middle of the game on a predetermined basis does not work. And there's a reason why Herm Edwards is one of the only coaches to actually try this strategy in the NFL. Testaverde actually played lights out to start the game off, as you can tell. He was wheeling and dealing, and was playing some of his best football ever, looking like the Testaverde that guided the Jets to the AFC Championship all those years ago. He played the first 3 drives of the game, going up until the middle of the second quarter. On those 3 drives, the Jets scored 10 points, as he went 7 for 11 with 112 yards passing, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, and a passer rating of 127.8. The Eagles didn't have any answers for him, as it seemed like Testaverde had a really good chance to lead the Jets to their 3rd straight win and get them back on track following their disastrous start to the year. But then, we had to change all of that so that Chad Pennington could come into the game completely out of nowhere. And that's when everything fell apart. Whereas the Jets scored 10 points on Testaverde's 3 drives, they scored just 7 points on Pennington's 7 drives. They averaged over 3 points per drive with Testaverde, and averaged 1 point per drive with Pennington. Whereas Testaverde played great, Pennington's outing was not so great. In fact, it was kinda bad, as the 1 touchdown drive was due to great field position and design runs getting the vast majority of the yardage, including the final 25 yards of the drive. Pennington's passer rating was not even half of what Testaverde's was, as Pennington went 14 for 24 with 154 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception, 2 sacks, and a passer rating of just 60.1. And due to the offense struggling to get anything going, scoring just once in the 7 drives that Pennington was under center, the Jets ended up losing this game, dropping it by a final score of 24-17 in a game that all but ended their season with a 2-5 record. Again, what Herm Edwards was thinking by doing this, I really don't understand. But his grand plan to try and get both quarterbacks involved and not create a quarterback controversy ended up shockingly creating a quarterback controversy and ended up costing his team the game. Now, for what it's worth, after the game between these 2 teams behind me right here, Chad Pennington was the starting quarterback for the rest of the season, as he started the final 9 games for the Jets under center. Granted, the team wasn't much better, as they finished the year 6-10. But it made sense. This was Chad Pennington's team, he was the franchise quarterback, and it would have been his team for the whole season if he didn't get hurt in the preseason. Vinny Testaverde did not play a single snap for the rest of the year, and he actually never played another snap for the New York Jets, as he found himself on the Dallas Cowboys in 2004. And again, I want to make this very clear. I had no problem with putting in Chad Pennington. Just don't do it in the middle of a game when Vinny Testaverde has the hot hand. It doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't. I don't get this, Herm Edwards. I just don't get it. Herm Edwards famously said, "You play to win the game." And I have no clue how that saying even applied here. Vinny Testaverde was playing well. He was winning you the game, and you pulled him just because. It's like a starting pitcher who's pitching lights out and has only thrown 30 pitches through 4 innings while allowing no runs and no hits. And you yank him because that was your plan from the start, even though the flow of the game and the importance of the game should have dictated otherwise. You created a controversy and created a mountain out of a molehill when there absolutely did not need to be one. The easiest way to create a quarterback controversy is to play both of your quarterbacks. The easiest way to create a quarterback controversy is to have your 2 guys playing in the same game, and how Herm Edwards didn't recognize that is a mystery. It backfired, it didn't work, and it ultimately cost you the game. So much for riding the hot hand, or so much for this being Pennington's team. Either way, no matter who you apply it to, it doesn't work. Because on this day in 2003, Herm Edwards was the head coach of the New York Jets, with Jets being an acronym for Joker Ends Testaverde's Start. Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jj9shop.com, and be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Join me every Wednesday night where we'll play NFL Trivia for cash prizes at 9 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch. To learn more about the history of college football, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To learn more about the history of Major League Baseball, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 7. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.